I probably hiked that trail 2, 3 times before. The only thing is I've never walked up to the top of Micah Peak. And so I've been walking a lot lately, and I said, okay, I'll do that. So I went the back route of the trail. This is a horse trail, goes all the way up to Micah Peak. And I went there to do that, and then I was going to cut across and come down the other side. So I got up to Micah Peak, not quite to Micah Peak, but pretty close. And when I was going up, there's a bike rider, and I noticed there's a trail off to the left, and I asked him if that was the loop to go to Hughes Cabin, which is a cabin, not really a cabin there, but that's what they call it. And he goes, I'm not sure, but he looked at his map, and I looked at mine, and I had mine on my phone. And he goes, yeah, I think it is. So when I came back down off of Micah Peak, I looked at that, and I go, I'm going to try it. It looks fairly good, you know, until I got about a quarter mile into it, and there was a lot of snow on the ground. But I looked, and it's only like 100 feet or so. So I go, oh, I can walk across that. And I did that, and I got a little bit farther, and the snow got a little bit deeper and wetter, and my feet started to sink in a little bit, and then even at spots I sank down to my knees. But I also noticed there was the footsteps going the same way I was in the snow. So I thought, well, this got to be it, right? But I must have missed the turn to go down to the cabin, because the trail got narrower and narrower, and the trees got more and more. And the only thing that marked the way was, it looked like elk droppings. And so I just kind of followed them across, and I go, well, I'm not sure where I'm at, but I need to get out of the snow. So I started heading down. I found a stream, and I said, well, all the streams are going to go down to the lake, so I'm just going to try to go that way. And anyhow, so I started doing that, but it was not easy going. And the simple reason is there's tons of brush. A lot of the trees have been fallen down, and they were stacked on each other, and had to go up and down hills and this and that. So I said, well, let me see if I can find a trail somewhere. You know, you could see like little openings in the trees or ridge tops or what have you. And I walked towards that, and yeah, it would be like a little old logging road or some little, probably an animal trail or something. But it only went like maybe 100 yards or so, and then all of a sudden you're hitting more trees and this and that. So I just started heading a little bit farther east, and then I found a way, come down a little bit. But at the top of the mountain, the streams are really narrow and shallow. But the snow melt keeps feeding into them, and they get bigger and bigger and wider and faster and steeper. And so I couldn't cross any more streams, not safely anyhow. And so I go, well, I'm going to have to go up and around or what have you. And I ended up in this little valley, and it's around 7 o'clock at night. So I'm thinking, well, I need to find a place to spend the night. My phone didn't work. I couldn't call my wife. Even though I turned the emergency beacon on, I'm sure that there was no signal anyhow. And I couldn't believe it. I wasn't really too worried. I go, I'm just going to get up in daylight and finish my way down the hill. And I hadn't seen any person since I started on that back trail. I haven't seen any man-made structures. After I got off the main trail, I saw nowhere else to walk, you know, that was made like a trail. And I looked up a little bit on the side of the mountain, and there was an old lean-to. I don't know if you know what a lean-to is. Anyway, it's basically a cabin. And really, think of the Unabomber's cabin, but cut it like 1/10 of that. So basically, it's just a log goes across, and there's other logs that go down. They call it a lean-to, but it had the sides in there. And I was looking at that, and I go, well, it's supposed to rain tonight. And I noticed the lean-to even had a tarp over it. But it was probably old, probably been there for a while, because there's trees overgrown and everything. I go, well, it's like an oasis in the desert almost. So I get in there, excuse me, yeah. And I get into the lean-to, and I noticed on one side of the lean-to there were lumber. I mean, not the sides of the building itself, but just firewood. Started off from smaller pieces to larger and larger. And so I go, well, I can make a fire here. The front side of the lean-to is open. So I go, it's interesting. And in the middle of it was a little stool. It was like a little three-legged stool. So I sat on it, and immediately I fell back and landed on my back. And then that's when I noticed that my camera was gone. I go, the trees, when you're walking through the trees, the branches kept grabbing you and pulling on you, and you were actually pulling on the trees, trying to climb up the hill and this and that. And apparently the branches decided to open my pack and relieve me of my camera. So I go, oh crud, that's an expensive camera. So now I wasn't worried about myself. I was worried about what my wife's going to say when she finds out I lost my camera. So besides the fact that I couldn't be able to call her. But anyway, I started doing that. I got the emergency blankets I have, and basically they're just Mylar. Made myself a little bed, and I go, well, I saw the wood there. And I had a little flint and steel marker. Or not marker, but a fire starter. I said, I never got this to work before, but maybe I'll try this time. And so I got there, and then I noticed on the one side was the wood, on the other side, there were some metal objects in the lean-to. And there's like a little can that looked like, I would guess, baked beans or something. But it was none labeled. I didn't open it up. And then I saw a saw, and I saw like a pruning saw, a hand saw and a pruning saw. And I also found a small tuna fish sized can that turned out to be sterno. I don't know if you know what sterno is, but it's like a gelatin stuff that people use to cook with when they're camping, and sometimes you can light it up in it. I said, wow, I could really get a fire going here. So I got the sterno out, and I put some little twigs on there to get it going, and a little bigger branches and that. But I didn't want to get the fire too hot because I'm inside a wooden structure. All I wanted to do is have a little bit of warmth. So I did that. I got the fire going, and then it was dark, really dark, and there's no way I could go out by myself without obviously getting hurt. So I heard the helicopter. I go, I bet they're looking for me. But I'm wondering how they're going to actually see me. I'm in a deep forested area. I'm in this lean-to. So I decided, well, maybe they have infrared or some kind of heat sinking thing or heat. So I decided to build up the fire a little bit, get the flames going, this and that. And I go, well, even if they see it, they probably couldn't do anything. I mean, I'm stuck here. So they probably flew over. I don't know if they ever saw the fire or not, or even noticed it. I never heard. But I decided, well, I'm just going to stay awake at night and make sure the fire's going because I don't want to get out of the way. I don't want to burn myself to death. And it was a wooden structure. And I heard the thunder and lightning, but I really didn't see any rain. And I spent the night in the cabin. So after daylight came, I took my water and doused out the fire and stomped it out and made sure that, because I didn't want it. Well, I get lost and now I start a forest fire. And I cleaned up and I started walking down the hill. Well, the streams kind of meet and they're fast and running. I ended up in a V in the stream. One stream on the right and the stream on the left, and they were meeting. They were too fast. There was no way to cross them safely. So I had to backtrack. So I went back the way I came, and I found my camera. So I go, wow. So I got my camera back, and I could hear the helicopter, and I went looking for a place for them to see me. The biggest problem there, for my opinion, is even if they see me, how would they get me? Because the trees are too dense and too close together. And how would they do it anyway? Do they send somebody hiking, send people around to find me or what? And I heard the helicopter, the sheriff's helicopter, and I found an open spot, probably not much bigger than this area here, okay? And I tied a part of my emergency blanket to my post and kind of waved it like a flag. And I know the guy saw me because he turned around and he kind of looked at me, but then I had no way to talk to him, communicate with him, whatever. And he wasn't the pararescue, he was just a sheriff's helicopter. So he was probably just looking for me. And so I go, well, if they're going to rescue me, I have to find a place where they can actually get to, right? And I wasn't sure where I was. I had an idea. And I said, well, and I looked in the distance, a little bit east, and I could see up high a flat open area. So I figured if I could climb up there, hopefully it was flat, climb up there, I can be seen a lot easier. Well, it turned out to be in Idaho. Fortunately, there's no border guards. And so I climb up the hill, I'm grabbing branches, every once in a while they break and I fall back, or I climb over a tree or under a tree and this and that. And probably after an hour or so, I got up there, I'm guessing around 11 o'clock in the afternoon or morning. And I laid out one of my emergency blankets, and with rocks, I wrote, help, lost. And I said, well, I could build a fire here, that might help people know, but then I go, I don't have the sterno with me. So I decided just to take the emergency blanket, other emergency blanket I had, turn it to the shiny side up so it reflect the sun a little bit, and use the backpack and just kind of lay underneath that because I don't want to be exposed to the element. I mean, it was too hot. So I could hear the helicopter out in the distance, but it's like they weren't coming far enough. You know what I mean? They were coming so far and then turning around, going back and forth. So I go, well, my phone's not working, but maybe I'll try it anyhow. So I get it and it turns on. I call my wife. I told her, how'd the helicopter come left? I don't think she heard a word I said. She was just crying and how glad I was okay, right? But before that, I turned on my emergency beacon on the phone. And I don't know exactly what happened, but they got the signal and they found me. And so I got this pararescue helicopter flying over me, and And the guy waved at me, and I waved back, and I think that's the first time I really got emotional. And he dropped down this bag and left a note, said, "I'll be back in 30 minutes." And my thinking was, if they didn't get caught today, I would just walk farther east. I had a little bit of food, and I had water, obviously, the streams, until I found a road. Anyway, so I was so glad that I saw him. And he came down, and he lifted me up on the hoist. Well, I was probably more scared going up on that hoist than any other time in the woods. But as soon as he started lifting me up, I started looking around. I said, wow, I could have gone there. I could have gone there. It was amazing. They were super. So I made it back, and they checked my fluids and this and that and vitals. They took me to the hospital, but I didn't stay because basically what I did was I spent the night in the woods. I cannot thank the sheriff department, the people I didn't know that were searching for me, the pararescue team, the people in my prayer group, my son from driving from Seattle to Spokane overnight, and my wife, just for being there. So that's basically my story.